Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, this is the abridged version of my sponsorship speech. I am submitting the unabridged one for the official records of the Senate. We have just emerged from the world's longest lockdown, 75 days, when 109 million of us in the 13th most populous country in the planet hunkered down to stop the virus. Although it spared us from it in unpaid bills, our people in hardship, and our government in debt. In our bid to flatten the curve, the needles of our economy moved to alarming lows. 2.79 million workers lost their income, putting them overnight into welfare. 103,000 firms shattered, most temporarily, but many for good. The quarantine cost our economy 18 billion pesos a day. And yet our agony is not over. The virus remains an enigma. No cure is in sight. Ahead is the great unknown. This measure is the bill of lading of the provisions that we will bring in our journey to the uncertain future, our survival tools. Mr. President, the easy way forward is to simply extend the validity of the existing bill, which requires nothing more than changing the timestamp of its activity. Or we can strengthen it, make it more potent, so that the end product is a bill that is not merely given a fresh lease on life, but is loaded with new features drawn from what our people have experienced over the past 75 days. May I remind you, my dear colleagues, that this was the approach we had taken in tackling the bare bones bill, which we collectively improved on to become the bill as one. Our friends in the other house were expecting that we will rubber stamp the palace proposal, so much so that they didn't even bother to order lunch. But what did we do? In the time-honored tradition of the Senate, we crossed party lines and worked until dawn to craft a vastly superior version more attuned to what our people needed. What did we do? Why did we do it? Because it has been our practice that given a proposal full of generalities, we do not call for a vote until we have the bill granular. Instead of sweeping powers, we in the Senate fleshed out a to-do list for the executive. Thanks to the able leadership provided by our chairman then, Senator Pia Cayetano. We mandated cash aid for 18 million families. We required PhilHealth to pay the full cost of COVID-19 treatments. We decreed that health frontliners be given hazard pay. We compelled the prompt testing of PUIs and PUMs. We instituted a moratorium in paying loans, rents, and utilities. We directed credit flow to key sectors of the economy like food production. We relaxed the procurement rules for medical supplies. We enumerated where the anti-pandemic funds should go. We institutionalized work for home arrangements and many, many more. Because there is a Senate that does not automatically say yes to bills they ask for, but think on how these bills could be made better. Mr. President, this pandemic is a tragedy of many acts. As we begin a chapter, so must we write a new playbook. When the pandemic mutates, we adapt. We may not be able to fully flatten the curve, but we must always be ahead of it. What are the challenges we face? Our GDP may contract by 15%, according to one estimate, a value-added loss of 2.5 trillion pesos. But beyond the dashboard economic indicators is the pandemic's harsh impact on Filipino lives. One estimate puts at 7.5 to 10 million the number of people who may lose their jobs this year. They will be joined by roughly 400,000 Filipino overseas workers who want to go home. Also in the displaced column are 33 million students whose schooling is now interrupted, plus the 3 million teachers and auxiliary workers in education. Throughout history, hunger has marched lockstep with pandemics. and poverty a dangerous comorbidity. Already the number of GNP, or Gutom na Pilipino, doubled from 2.1 million families surveyed in December 2019 to 4.2 million families in May 2020. If these are the ills we face, then this bill is the bag of cures. Band-aids aren't enough. What is needed is a medicine cabinet approach. In addition to programs under the Bayanihan Act, this bill authorizes the following: to protect jobs and livelihood, a wage subsidy in the amount of roughly 15 to 30 billion, in which a qualified individual can receive up to 2 months of minimum wage. To farmers, fishermen, and other frontliners against hunger, various forms of production assistance through a 40 billion grant to the Department of Agriculture. To workers, 20 billion for cash for work activities that will boost our defense against the pandemic, like contact tracing, health facilities construction, and nutrition activities. To the DOH, 20 billion for improving public health care so that it can respond to other diseases and health emergencies simultaneous with managing COVID-19. To COVID-19 testing, 10 billion for trace, test, and treat, a shot in the arm of the health imperative for more and massive testing. In addition, businesses will be extended with credit, like MSMEs, agri-fishery, tourism, and export-oriented enterprises, to the tune of roughly 50 to 70 billion pesos for low interest rates, Mr. President. For those who will lose their jobs and livelihood, there is also assistance for workers in education, transport, health, including repatriated OFWs and those displaced in other sectors, to the tune of 50 and probably even to 80 billion pesos in assistance. To consumers with loans, utility bills, and other payroll taxes, a 30-day grace period, unpaid credit card, and utility bills can be settled by installment, free of interest and charges until the end of the year. Yes, the above will be financed largely by borrowings, but with a debt to GDP ratio below 40%, we're far from maxing out the national credit card. If the economy were a patient in ICU, there is nothing morally wrong and no fiscal canon is violated in using credit to save it, Mr. President. For our people, let us craft and pass this bill in true Senate Bayanihan fashion. Again, let me reiterate and thank and congratulate the good sponsor of this measure, our good chairman, Senator Sani Angara, for a job well done. Thank you, Mr. President.